Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel is Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update of commodities, work our way through the dollar, yields, precious metals, and commodities ETFs that I follow. I'll interject my financial opinions as we go through it. And if you need help with anything, check out finding-value.com. We still have the LEAP coupon code that is still available if you want to use it, with a larger discount on the yearly membership if you want to join for a yearly membership. We have a 7 a.m. question and answer session coming up on Saturday. So let's dive in. Let's see what's going on with the markets. Starting with the dollar, dollar is just going sideways. I still think this has the potential to work its way higher with time. Today is kind of a fluke day, perhaps, or maybe. So this is what I'm seeing. Large, big buying pressure move to the upside. We have small selling pressure days coming on back. That generally works its way higher with time, generally. But you're playing with not 100% probabilities. They are more like 70, 80% from what I've seen, at least in this type of setup. So it highly depends on what yields do. If yields decide to really tank, yeah, this could go lower. But a lot of the yields are at support, and we'll look at yields here next. So the dollar, it's been moving sideways since February, middle of February, the whole time, and it's just kind of relaxed, moving sideways. The 2 year, it's coming back a little bit. Is this a start of a trend, or is this just a little normal pullback that we get as we go up? Right now, the momentum's to the upside. We've got a little bit of selling pressure today, and we'll have to wait and see if that continues to the downside. The 10-year yield still looks strong, just moving sideways above support, which makes me think we can still go higher on the 10-year yield. And then the 30 years on support, and we're just bouncing sideways at this current time, right on that support level. So the short end of the curve looks a little bit weaker, and then the longer end still looks good. So it's tough to know, tough to kind of try to predict based off of the information that we've got on the long end versus the short end versus the dollar. So I'll just say we've been moving sideways the past few weeks with no clear established uptrend or downtrend at this moment. TYX TNX ratio, we are up a little bit today. That does help. It does help gold and silver, but it's not a huge earth-shattering move. It's just 0.25%. So for the most part, the trend is still lower, which means the yield curve is still further inverting. That means that it's going to be a headwind for precious metals at this time. TLT, which is bond prices, this actually looks like it wants to go higher. It's right on support, but that doesn't necessarily jive with our 10-year yield and our 30-year yield charts. So what's going on here? that's really what's going on. So we're going sideways. We do not have a clear established trend for yields going up or down, which means we don't necessarily have a clear established trend of where the pricing of some of these assets can be. So if it's stable, then the pricing of assets could be a little bit more stable too. We're just moving sideways in a lot of these asset prices. And then the 2 and 10, we are coming uninverting a teeny bit, down 0.28%, basically just moving sideways. Gold, moving sideways. I mean, that's what we get. When yields move sideways, you'll get gold moving sideways. You'll get a lot of these assets that kind of don't go anywhere. So we're moving sideways in gold. Still looks good. It's sitting close to all-time highs. We've got silver that's also just right above support. It doesn't look bad. I like the physical metals. Platinum moving sideways, much like the rest of the group. That's what we're doing still. Palladium also trying to find a bottom here, I think, right above support. We've got the XAU to gold ratio. Now, this doesn't look too hot here, guys. The gold and silver mining companies are underperforming gold, and they are being sold off. I don't know if that's just out of sheer boredom or the sentiment is that bad and we're just going to capitulate whatever's left. Tough to say, but it is breaking to the downside, and this is something that I'm going to wait and see if we've got further downside in XAU to gold ratio. The CRB index, I know oil was slightly lower when I was looking at it. So yeah, we're down a little bit, but that's just a bloody nose, and we could easily continue higher in the CRB index with support underneath us. So that still looks good. CRB to S&P 500 moving sideways, down 0.25%, but it's holding on. It looks all right. Backing out, this is your wave one, I think. Consolidation, and I think eventually it'll work its way on up. We've got going into the gold and silver mining companies, GDX is down, not looking all that great to be honest, but again, we'll see. I'm going to hold my judgment. We are back to support, and we'll see if that support line holds. GDXJ also down, back to support, and then SILJ also lower today. And we really need to get some buying pressure in here for me to change my mind on this. Sellers are just kind of death by 1,000 cuts as we come on down, and maybe we're getting close. See some buying pressure. Crude oil is currently down 0.63, 0.65% or so. It's right up against resistance. We've paused there today, and let's see if we can get the momentum to the upside generated. Still looks good. Doesn't look bad. We are coming up, squeezing into that resistance line that we've got, and it could look like a shoulder, head, shoulder that we've got going on where we could break to the upside. TTF gas, nat gas up a little bit, 4.26%. Momentum still to the downside, but we're up today. And then natural gas, 3.7% up in Henry Hub. And we could see this work its way all over the place, depending on weather and inventory levels. Still bearish, but I know that we've got a little bit of cold weather coming through that could bring this up a teeny bit like we've got. Our boy XOP, yeah, you know me, down a little bit. We could see maybe a little jaunder around, but overall, it depends highly on oil. If we can get oil moving to the upside, this will follow whatever oil does for the most part. OIH down a little bit. We're still above the trend line. We've broken that trend line, basically doing our return move, our retest, and then I think eventually it'll work its way on up. Still looks good there. Physical uranium trust. I still think there could be potential downside here. I'm not jumping in front of this train. A lot of the times you get the momentum that gets generated here, and then you squeeze up, then you poop or go back down again. So, fall over. So I'm patient here. I think there could be further downside in the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. URA also getting sold off. It is a bearish engulfing, and we could see further downside in URA. URNM also bearish engulfing. We could see further downside in URNM, and URNJ not quite the same setup with the bearish engulfing, but it could still head lower with the setup that we've got. TAN down 1.22%. It is just meandering around here, trying to put in what looks to be a bottom. We've got copper slightly higher today, underneath resistance, and we are trying to break out of this pattern. Is it to the upside or is it to the downside? We did enter this pattern from the top side down, which generally is a continuation pattern to the downside, generally. We'll see if that plays out that way. COPX is down about 2%. We're getting some selling pressure across the board. Not just, across the board everywhere. Uranium, copper, all over the place. S&P 500, but we're down a little bit in copper today. Still holding above support. Lithium up a little bit. Looks like it's trying to do opposite of everything else, but again, this has got some time. I got to see the buying pressure to really put some legs underneath this. But we are above support, the big long-term support. We did get real close. Is this a continuation pattern where we have one last move lower? We'll see. REMX up 2%. That looks good. Looks like we're trying to break through some support or resistance here, and maybe we've got further upside in REMX. Not too bad down there. S&P 500 getting a little bit of selling pressure. It's still holding on, guys. but we'll see. This thing is priced to perfection. It is up there, but just moving sideways and moving sideways for a NASDAQ composite. Still easily could go higher if it wants to. KRE down 1%. It's still looking good. We don't have a ton of selling pressure here, so it still looks like to me that we could go higher. Emerging markets down 1.32%. A little bit of weakness there going on in emerging markets, even with yields going down a little bit and the dollar's up a little bit. XHB still working its way on up. Surprising strength out of home builders. They look really good. Moo down a little bit. Still looks good to go higher though. Not much selling pressure. It's just moving sideways. And I think we are basing out eventually here, right where we're at. Iron ore, it's puking on itself. It's puking over. So downtrend still intact and we could go lower. We've got aluminum slightly lower today. And it's just moving sideways at support. Maybe we've got a little pattern going on there. A little squeeze up going on. Baltic Dry Index up, and I think I saw even further upside in Baltic Dry Index and some of this, but that looks good to continue higher. We've got Newcastle Coal working its way on up, looking pretty good. I think this is trying to put in a bottom and eventually work its way on up here, so that looks good. Bitcoin ripping to the upside. We do have a volatile day. Look at that. Big wick at the top there. Is this a top where we eventually turn on over? It could be, guys. I mean, usually at tops, you start seeing these wicks. You get usually a pullback. I'm not saying how big the pullback is, but that's generally where you see these wicks are at the top there. Then you get a little bit of a selling pressure move afterward. Maybe we do something like that. I don't know. And then Ethereum's up. Also another wick at the top. Do we have a little bit of selling pressure in this thing? We do. That's what the wick is. If I were to look at this on a short-term basis, you can see the big selling pressure move there. Sometimes that manifests itself with kind of a distribution type movement where we could head sideways to lower in both of these. And then SMCI, you can see it just slowly pulling back. Not much selling pressure there. I don't like this big candlestick there though. That big bearish engulfing. That generally will work its way on down. And then NVIDIA, just to see what that looks like. No, it's still holding on. Surprisingly, it is holding on. But that's what I've got for today, guys. Thumb up for the content, subscribe to the channel. The sector that gets me most revved up at this time would be oil to see if we break to the upside. That's what I'm looking for. But everything else looking like a lot of selling pressure across the board today. So that's what I've got. We'll catch you guys next time. This is Finding Value.